So, following a breach, Disney have announced that they're moving away from Slack and banning that for internal communication. In this video, we're going to discuss exactly what happened, why it's significant, why systems like Slack are targeted so often, and what this means for you if you're using Slack. The original breach happened in the middle of July, and it came from a group called Null Bulge. The group claimed that they had data from 10,000 channels, and this obviously included lots of sensitive information belonging to Disney, and talking about unreleased projects, new projects, code, images, and even login credentials. But I think a lot of people will look at this and say, well, big deal. Who cares if Slack is compromised? What's the worst that they're going to find out? Some messages about things that are coming up? It's kind of not the worst thing in the world. But actually, it's pretty bad. And I'm going to explain why systems like Slack are targeted so frequently. Internal messaging systems often contain huge amounts of secrets. And I'm not talking about secrets like who the office crush is. I'm talking about digital secrets, things like API keys, credentials, security certificates. These are very frequently inside internal messaging systems. And this is because of a dilemma that we really face in software development. That is that nearly everything online is held together by secrets, right? API keys, security certificates. This is how we interconnect these systems. This makes them extremely sensitive, but here comes the dilemma. They also need to be widely distributed because developers need to have access to them, and you need a way to be able to share them. Now, there's secure channels to do this, but they can be tiresome and cumbersome. So often, against policies, developers will quickly share them with each other on Slack channels, in Git repositories, and places like that. And thus these secrets lead. And this comes back to why Slack channels are such a big target. Firstly, they contain lots of the secrets. This is well documented. And when an attacker breaks into a system, the first thing they're trying to do is really persist, access, and move laterally. That is because usually they've gained access likely because they've phished someone or they've found a vulnerability that's given them access to a network or something similar. But as soon as the victim, the person that's being targeted, finds out, then they're going to close down those channels of access. So the attackers quickly want to find more levels of access while they still are in there. The easiest way to do this, the lowest hanging fruit, is to find secrets like credentials, like API keys, and move into more systems and infect more and more areas. This makes Slack such a really great initial access point. There's another reason why Slack channels are great targets, and that's because how many people have access to them. So when we're looking at something like secrets, if an attacker's trying to find them, well, the hardest place to get them is where they're meant to be, inside a secrets manager or a vault. Getting access to that is nearly impossible by design. However, if you gain access to an area like Slack, which the whole organization has at least partial access to, then you're good for a really good shot of still finding these credentials to move into different systems. So its attack surface is sprawl, but the valuable information that it can contain in between is really, really high. And this brings us to kind of the next question that may be on your mind. If Slack is such a good target, and if there were so many secrets in there, then why hasn't Disney suffered? Why 3 months later are we kind of talking about this, but there's been no notable outages, no ransoms, and no stop to production? A lot of that has to do with the type of group that attacked Disney. Null Bulge call themselves an hacktivist group, advocating for artist right. That means that their intention aren't really all that malicious. They want to cause disruption, they want to cause chaos, they don't necessarily want to bring down a company or engage in further criminal activity like ransoming data. But this is where the problem that Disney needs to be careful with. The group published this data online, which means now there's a whole new kind of threat, and that is the malicious hacking groups. They would have immediately started enumerating through this data to try and find those goodies. And this is where you kind of have a little bit of a cat and mouse competition that immediately goes on when a big hunk of data like this is made public. That is that Disney and hackers are both searching through this data trying to find their secrets. The hackers to exploit them, Disney or the victim to try and revoke access through these. So let's get on to the news of today. The reason that this has been brought up in everyone's newsfeed again is because Disney have announced that they're moving away from Slack. On the surface, this makes sense. Your Slack channel was the source of your problems, therefore get rid of that, get rid of your problems. But this is far from the truth. Slack was never actually the problem. The real problem is that an employee of yours likely fell victim to a phishing campaign. It has nothing to do with the security of Slack and more to do with the security of your systems, which means that you're going to rip out Slack and replace it with another internal messaging system. Now, we're not sure exactly what that tool is. Disney has called it a streamlined enterprise-wide collaboration tool, whatever that means. It's probably something like Mention or Google Teams or something else which has the same functionality. And guess what? If an attacker targets your employees with the same type of phishing campaign, you're going to have the exact same problems, more or less. It doesn't matter what streamlined enterprise collaboration tool that you're using, they're all going to have the same problems. So if you're using Slack, Mention, Mattermost, or anything else, then you're going to want to have the same kind of methods. And this is that you want to make sure that you have strict access on areas within these tools. But most importantly, you want to implement some kind of scanning mechanisms to identify when secrets are leaked out. And also, make sure you have the tools in place to be able to share things like secrets securely. So making sure that you're using the right tools and all your employees know how to use them. Well, that's it from me. I'll have lots of breach analysis like this in the future, so make sure you subscribe to the Aikido Security YouTube page, and I'll see you in the next video.